We're here to talk about a Bluetooth speaker. Well, a Bluetooth speaker with extra bits, shall we say. It's from a UK outfit called Pure. You may know Pure for a whole range of radios, DAB predominantly, and also FM, and various types and sizes. This particular Bluetooth speaker is a little dinky thing, but we'll get to that in a sec. In fact, before I go any further, if at the end of this review you fancy buying one, then what I will do, I'll put a link to an Amazon page where you can do just that, just to save you some time. And while we're about it, if you also want to read my review I did on my blog, which you can read at your leisure, I'll put a link for that below as well. I'll also put my homepage on there too for the blog, and links for a Facebook group and my Patreon page and other social media. So this Bluetooth speaker is called the StreamR. It's a dinky little thing. It doesn't weigh a great deal, about 0.8 of a kilogram, and it's about 105 millimeters high, and it's quite a portable little thing. In fact, let me show it to you in person. And this is the box, and as you can see here, a bit of extra info before we even open the box here. You get up to 15 hours worth of battery life. As you can see, it's quite a compact thing there. So let's open the box and see what we can see. This is the instruction leaflet you receive, and it's one of those little concertina efforts, as you can see here. But it gives you all the essentials that you will need. It's not a very complex piece of kit, the StreamR. What is very useful though is this little leaflet. And this little leaflet, just one page, shows you what's going on the top of the unit. We'll get to that in a second. But this is the StreamR in person. Let me just give you a quick up to camera guided tour here. So the StreamR has really two speakers. We have one on top, and there's the grill, as you can see here, but we also have one below, and that's really for the bass. You can see also the 4 feet. So the unit is lifted slightly from the surface just to give the bass frequencies room to circulate. What you're seeing right now is the StreamR in hibernation mode. It's not doing much. There's not much to it. And except for the promise of touch sensitive buttons on the top here, and maybe one or two intriguing little oddments around the back, there's not much happening and there's not much to access. But if you press down on the top here, like so, the whole thing comes alive. Now let me do this to camera, because it's far more exciting up close. So as you can see, the inner part of the StreamR is spring loaded. This is how the StreamR wakes up. And when it does wake up, this little readout on the front will tell you it's from Pure, but you already knew that, didn't you? Then it will tell you about the battery life. And as you can see, I think I need to have mine on charge for a little bit. And then it will tell you what mode you're in. In this particular mode, we're on Bluetooth. Now there are 4 modes that you can cycle through on the StreamR. There is Bluetooth, there is DAB radio, FM, and auxiliary. The initial mode will be displayed. So when you enter Bluetooth, it will say Bluetooth. There'll be a slight pause, and then the mode will relax into the current state. So if you have Bluetooth actually connected to a device, as I have with my phone, it'll say BT Con, Bluetooth connected. Similarly, when you cycle through the radio stations, whether it's DAB or FM, it'll tell you whether you're connected to DAB or FM. After a couple of seconds, it'll revert to the particular station you're connected to. Auxiliary mode, it'll say AUX, AUX input, auxiliary input. But then it'll relax into the time. So if you want to have a clock permanently displayed on the StreamR, you need to be in auxiliary mode. So there is Bluetooth mode and the current state, which is BT Con, BT connected. We have DAB radio. It'll try and find the station, in this case Radio 1, BBC Radio 1. FM, similarly, it will find the station, that's the current station it's on, and then auxiliary input. After that, it'll relax into the current time. Now, using a handy screwdriver pointer I've just found on the corner of the room, let me point out some of the inky dinky little controls at the rear here. Right here is a radio auto tune button. On the opposite side is a Bluetooth pairing button. And in the center there you can see a mini USB port for charging. On the top here, which you can hardly see, are 4 preset buttons dedicated for the radio. On either side here, we have controls for the volume. So let me show you how that works. So if I press the volume, you'll see that going up and back down again. At the top here, there is a small circle with an arrow going through it. That's your source selector, and it will cycle through Bluetooth, DAB, FM, auxiliary, back to Bluetooth, and so on and so on. So it'll just cycle through every time you touch that source button. So the source button is here. Once you've selected the source, you press this button here. And once you access that particular button, if you're in Bluetooth mode, for example, it will enable you to go through the tracks of your Bluetooth source. If you're in radio mode, DAB or FM, you can cycle through your stations, and similar with the auxiliary port as well. The center button here is a multi-function port, and if you press that particular button, it will either mute the music or it'll start or stop a track. Alternatively, it will access Alexa. And yes, you can control the StreamR through voice via Alexa. And to access Alexa, you just press and hold the center button for a full 2 seconds and you're in. Speaking of pressing and holding buttons, if you're listening to one of the radios here, DAB or FM, and you'd like to save a particular radio station, then if you press one of the preset buttons for a full 2 seconds, the radio station you're listening to will be saved as the new preset in one of those 4 positions. Now you might be saying to yourself, how do I connect this thing to an auxiliary device? Well, I think Pure has implemented the connecting of auxiliary devices quite nicely because they've combined it with a radio aerial. Let me show you. At the rear here is this little bobbly bit. You can see sort of sticking out here. All you've got to do is pull, and then you basically unwind from the chassis a wire. At the end of that is a 3.5mm plug. You can plug into your device. Now this wire itself also serves as an aerial. This wire will serve as an auxiliary plug. Now if I take the little plastic bit off the end of this terminated plug, you'll find a standard 3.5mm connection. Now the only issue with having this little bit removed from the end of this 3.5mm plug is that this little bit can get lost. So if you do remove it, keep it safe. Then you're free to plug this termination into the device of your choice, and you'll be able to access the music from that device, which will play through this speaker. Rewinding this cable back in the now revealed trench at the bottom of the chassis here deserves a little bit of thought and attention if you want everything to fit snugly and tidily. If you want to access Amazon's Alexa via the StreamR, you can do via the built-in microphone, although this needs Bluetooth to be in operation. That's Bluetooth 4.2, incidentally. You can sign in via Alexa through the app itself. So how did this Bluetooth speaker with a 30-watt amp actually sound? I initially tested BBC Radio 1 via DAB. Reception was excellent, as was the quality of the signal. Sound quality was, in general terms, very good indeed, although it leaned towards the warm. Of course, from this very small unit, bass impact was pretty minimal. Dynamic reach restricted, while upper frequencies were a bit on the controlled side, I would say. Very listenable indeed, with no nasty frequency extremes or ill discipline. Listening to the same station via FM, using the rather jazzy built-in wire aerial, the tone of the music shifted from the rather warm tones of DAB to a slightly compressed sounding mid-band, the emphasis moving towards the upper frequencies, but with good reception included, adding rather greater depth and interest to the soundstage. I found if you were listening to a radio station which was predominantly speech, say something like BBC Radio 4, then DAB radio is really the one to go for. I found that the warm tones of DAB suited particularly a speech-related radio station. As an aside, I found Alexa to be a bit of a trial. Getting it to work when I wanted it to work was a bit hit and miss. Despite persisting over time, I found Alexa was fine when it was in the mood. Ultimately, voices were raised, words were exchanged, and Alexa and I are currently booked in for a session with a guidance counsellor. That said, my Alexa issues were not a deal breaker, and I soon forgot the feature, to be honest with you, and I didn't really miss not using Alexa. For some of you, my trials with Alexa on the StreamR may be an important factor, and if that's the case, then obviously you need to bear that in mind. For me, I didn't really see it as an issue. Back to audiophile matters now, and the StreamR did struggle a bit when faced with a more capable unit such as the Swell by Cabas, which offered a wider dynamic range, stronger and more incisive bass, but the latter is also a bit more expensive by around £50, while the StreamR offers a wider feature set. I also tested the StreamR against the BenQ Trevolo S Bluetooth speaker, which is also more expensive. But in this case, the StreamR won out. I was happy to hear the relatively superior tonal qualities from the StreamR. Even from this small unit, the StreamR offered enough bass response to provide a relatively balanced output, as well as admirable detail in the upper mid-range. I then turned to an auxiliary connection and plugged in a digital music player and listened to a couple of CD rips. In this case, it was Andrew Gold's Spence Manor Suite, and I was most impressed by the higher quality source. Of course, you're still dealing with a single small speaker, yet the relatively low noise, detailed offering from the auxiliary source provided decent clarity and an enhanced bass performance. So what's my conclusion about the Pure StreamR? Well, put it this way, I would happily live with this little gadget in my home, no problem at all. It doesn't get in the way, it's small enough to hide on a shelf or on a small side table or in the corner of a kitchen somewhere. It has several features to keep me happy, and sound-wise, well, it's very pleasant indeed. Quite civilized, I would say. Wrapping everything together, the feature set, the form factor, ease of use, and the price, I recommend it. And that's all for now, folks. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye for now.